Merry Christmas. You know, when we, at about 20 till 11, the prayer chaplains and myself, we join back in this room and we pray in, and at the end of our time of praying, we say, well, let's go give them heaven. Yeah. It's our intention. And what does that mean, really, to raise the consciousness of that which already is? Because heaven is here and now. That's the good news. It's not far off somewhere else. In this past month, we've been focusing on certain qualities that represent matters of the heart. Christmas is a holiday of the heart. I don't know if you've given that much attention, but it's a heart holiday. Focusing on the qualities of hope and peace and joy, and now today, love. These are all heart qualities. And they're the most meaningful qualities that we can experience. We all need hope and purpose, something to look forward to, something to fulfill. We all require peace of mind. We all look forward to moments of joy. And we also thrive on love. And if we don't have love, we'll wither and become bitter. So love is so important to living a life on planet Earth. We realize that it's probably the most important thing. I was looking, cultivating some ideas around today and about love, and I immediately remembered the words, God is love. And that comes from the Gospel of John. And I looked it up, and I wanted to just read a few of these passages. John, the apostle, is the apostle of love. And, someone's just wanting to check in with love. This comes from the Gnostic Gospel, which is distinct from the Synoptic Gospels, which synoptic means similar or same. The Gnostic Gospel of John was, they think, written around 85 to 110 of the Common Era, a little bit later. But the Gnostic Gospel is one of self-knowledge, of self-realization, of knowingness, of being in that state, not just speaking about it. So there is another emphasis, another layer that we can go to when we're talking about love. So the writer says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God abides in us, and his love is perfected in us. The last sentence is, by this we know that we abide in him and he in us because he has given us his Spirit. Those are nourishing words, but I question when and where did God ever become a man? This is rich with abide in him and he in us because he has given us his Spirit. Can we question that? How many women in here question that? It's okay. It's okay to have a voice around that. As we grow in awareness, as we grow in consciousness, this that we call God becomes more of an energy, more of a presence than a male or a female, even though for the longest time in unity, God has been Mother-Father God or Father-Mother God, because it's more balanced. It has nothing to do really with gender. It has to do with masculine, feminine poles of energy. Even in the ancient Kabbalah, the Godhead and branches off into divine masculine and divine feminine. So it's very important, I feel, in this changing time that we are in, where so much is under evaluation in terms of this most important element of our lives, at least for me, my own spirituality. I tell you, the most beautiful moments of my life experience when there has been this felt knowing, this download of presence that has moved through me. It has felt very much feminine. Not to exclude the divine masculine. So God is love. And we can engage in theological chit-chat all we want in terms of what God is. But it's more important to have a felt experience of this presence and power, is it not? Than sitting around debating about what God is. There is two verses that I left out in that reading from John that I would like to address today. The 9th verse and the 10th verse. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation of our sins. Wow. I looked up that word, propitiation. Do you know what it means? Appeasement. Does God need to be appeased for us? I don't think so. That means that we've done something wrong. Have we done anything wrong? Or are we simply under the illusion that we are separate from our Creator? In fact, in truth, the revealing of God's presence in our lives through meditation and prayer and through the evolution of consciousness has nothing to do with God as a localized entity that needs to be appeased. That is old world theology. What we are moving in and through now is the felt knowing that we are all of God. So God is love, but if we turn that around, we can feel and be instruments of that presence and power in our own lives. This word sin is an interesting word. I've always thought of sin as being, I like to use the metaphor of a radio station. And if the dial isn't dialed in just right, we have static on the radio station. That's sin. We're not quite dialed in. And an older metaphor is where in old England, where someone would be at an archery contest and they would take aim and let loose of the arrow. And if it didn't hit the mark, the judge would yell out, "Sin." It simply didn't hit the bullseye. Doesn't mean that there was anything wrong. It just means to keep practicing. And it has to do with us aligning with the right frequency so that we don't miss the mark or the point of human life. Sin is an interesting word. Has nothing to do with us being bad or wrong. It just has something to do with a correction. You and I are in this room right now, not only to celebrate, but to learn and to be students of truth. And what does that mean to be a student of truth? To be a truth student means to align ourselves with that vibration of truth with a capital T, so that that which seems to be separation gradually falls away, so that we align ourselves with the frequency, the radio station. We don't miss the mark of the vibration of divine love, which is what you and I are searching for all the time, this connection, to feel the love, to be the love, to be in it. So there is this process of reframe, perhaps, that is, because we can say God is love, and that is a concept, one that we can put in our pocket and remind ourselves all the time. Well, God is love, God is love, God is love. But when we reframe it and make it practical, we can say, love is God. So if I show up in my life in a loving way, I am practicing God. I'm practicing God. There's a author named Parker Palmer. I don't know how many people in here are familiar with him. But he talks about something called a tragic gap. A tragic gap. And that is the distinction between the concept and our lives. And to me, the work, the effort, the whole purpose of meditation and prayer and doing everything that we do to practice the presence of God is to make that tragic gap smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's no longer tragic and there is no longer a gap, but it is simply a place of union where you and I, through our own practice, are evident, we are evidence of God's presence on the planet. Have you ever thought of yourself as being an emissary, an evidence of God's presence in the world? A more modern prophet, his name is also John Lennon. He wrote a song called Mind Games. And he said, "Love is the answer. You gotta let it go." Let what go? Sin, self-induced nonsense. That's what sin is. Self-induced nonsense. Now, does that mean that we don't have accountability for our actions? Of course we do. We get a feedback loop on that all the time, every day of our lives, do we not? Through our day-to-day interactions with people, instantaneous feedback. We are accountable. But so much of what it is that we deal with is self-induced nonsense, static on our radio. And the constant application is to fine-tune our perception and our way of being that brings us more into alignment with the frequency of what it is that we actually are. Thus, lessening and eliminating suffering. Now, suffering is a great awakener. We don't really grow on planet Earth unless we experience some levels of suffering. Certain suffering is optional. We don't really have to suffer. That's not what I'm advocating. But we learn as we go. And we accumulate a body of wisdom on how to approach people, how to approach situations and circumstances. How to live a life of love. The Buddhist faith shares with us that life is suffering. Now, I think that that's only partially true. The other side of that is that an examined life is one that decreases suffering, so that we live a life of joy and we increase peace and love and hope. Science is uncovering all the time that we live and move and have our being within this field, this unified field that is malleable to our thoughts and feelings, that the qualification of life energy follows thought. This is an underlying premise of thought that has been hidden in some respects for ages. Those in power do not want people to know that energy follows thought, because it's very, very powerful. Because we take back our power and we live in our sovereignty of self, and we're not sheep being pulled around by the nose by images and people that are in power. We live a life in accordance with the sovereignty of our own soul and the groundedness of our own being on the earth. It is our divine right to do so. That's what the Christ teachings are all about. This holiday, this heart holiday of observance of the birth of Jesus, is a beautiful beginning. It's a beautiful beginning in each one of us. But then what? Then it matures and it learns how to heal, how to be compassionate, how to offer love to everyone and to ourselves. So, I want to just end with saying something that may seem extremely simplistic to you. It may just not even go in, or you may not see any value in it or hear any value in it. But it's very powerful. When I was sitting this morning just kind of reviewing my notes, your love is God. Your love is God. Can you claim that? That how you express your love in the world, from a moment-to-moment experience, is evidence of God in the world. So it's easy to have a concept, God is love. But it's more grounded and more powerful to say and to know, my love is God. We're co-creators with God. That's what the teachings say. Your love is God. Maybe that's the greatest gift of Christmas, is to really get that. God is love, but love is God. I wish you all the best in your Christmas this year. In just a little while, we're going to go downstairs and we're going to have a great potluck with each other. And we're going to have an opportunity to share our love with each other and in community. That's what it's all about. Thank you very much.